haven't been able to stream as much as I would love to for the last couple of weeks because I've been working on code that I did not write myself, and that hasn't been released under an open license. So haven't been able to kind of do the daily streaming like I've been doing before. Hopefully this will change soon. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to connect sounds to Emacs keys so you can do cool stuff like doing text-to-speech, for example, or just binding sound effects.
Balls of steel. I've got balls of steel. Well, look at that. You can see my dick from here. I'm an equal opportunity ass kicker. It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum. And I'm all out of gum. This really pisses me off. Come get some. Who wants some? Come get some. Looks like it's time for me to go postal.
And you can also do stuff like this. For example, I go to a line here, and I just do, I call the function that I've written, so GTTS, and speak line in English.
Asterisk, asterisk, loading the scripts from main config.
Yeah, and this calls the Google Translate text-to-speech. I find that the English version is a little bit bad at connecting words, so it doesn't sound as natural as, for example, the Swedish version of the Google Translate text-to-speech. The Swedish version is really good, but this is good enough, you know. And so how do we actually connect this? How do we actually bind the keys to the sounds? Let's get started from the main config. So I'm using the Doom D config, which is the Doom theme for Emacs. It configures Emacs to be more like Vim, so I can use like Vim commands, etc. But it also changes the place where you put your configuration. So when you install the Doom Doom mod, then all your configuration goes into the Doom D folder, which is here, which is the files that you can see here as well. I'm going to put the code in separate files, and to load the files I call the load function, and then I supply the absolute path of the file. I haven't been able to use a relative path. I guess I would need to read more about the documentation of the load function, but doing it like this works, so for now I do it like this. And for the text-to-speech, I define a number of functions. First of all, I define the functions that call the GTTS client. So you can install the GTTS CLI program using the normal apt-get install, and it takes a number of arguments. But here I just specify the language, so Swedish for the Swedish version, and then I also specify the file as std_in, because there is some issue with the way it parses arguments. So for example, you cannot do things like if I call this GTTS client with a dash, it just complains. It just doesn't. Let's see. We could do like this. So normally I could call it like with a string, and I should get the sound. Yeah. So obviously I should like do mpg 1 2 3. That's the sound player. Let's see. Yeah, but I've had problems doing this. Let's see. Yeah, because it complains that there is no such option. So there is probably some bug in the way it parses arguments, so that I cannot play something that looks like a list, for example. Like if I have a list here, and it would complain about this first dash in the beginning of the line. So to fix this, I don't want to change the Python source code of GTTS client. I just echo the string, obviously escaped, so I use the shell quote argument. This is a Emacs built-in function that quotes the string so that any spaces get, it escapes the string. So any spaces get escaped, and any other characters that can interfere with a shell command get escaped as well. So we can have text that contains quotes, which is actually quite likely because this function is going to be called on the current line, for example, and there could be anything on that line. And then, so I use the echo, and then I pipe it, and I make the GTTS client read stuff from std in, and then I pipe it through the MPEG-123 to actually play the sound. And the GTTS client is going to contact Google service and send the string and get the sound back. Then I define a number of functions. Oh, by the way, and the interactive argument, in Emacs you use this interactive. This is like a directive, I would say. But if you use this interactive, then your command is going to appear under MX, this global list of commands. And you can also supply the description of the arguments here, so that this is how you do things like this. So GTTS speak English, and then Emacs prompts you for the text to actually send to actually speak. So I could say like, hello world.
Hello world.
Yeah. So that's how it works. And if I don't supply any arguments, then this directive just makes sure that the command appears under MX. So I can bind it to keys. I can do like, I can use it in the init scripts and make it a command that's going to be called when something else happens. Otherwise, I guess it would be like a normal function if I don't use interactive. I'm not really 100% sure about all the details about Emacs because I've been using Emacs only for maybe a few weeks, soon a month, I guess. So I'm still kind of going through this learning curve of actually learning the APIs. I think the language itself, the Lisp language, is very simple. It's very easy to understand. It's very like the syntax is extremely simple. There's only a few concepts that go into the syntax, and then everything else is implemented as APIs and functions on top of that simple syntax. And then I define a number of functions that I can use to retrieve, for example, to speak the current line or to speak the current paragraph. And to do that, I just use the built-in function thing at point, which can retrieve the current line or the current paragraph. Or we can call it like this, paragraph at point as well. I'm going to change this though to thing at point. Paragraph. And this is going to return a string with the current paragraph, and then I pass it to this function as an argument here, and escape it and send it to the GTTS client. So that's how you do text-to-speech. And I guess some people that are like new to Emacs, they would ask questions like, can Emacs do this? Or can Emacs do that? And the answer to that is that Emacs is a Linux program, and the core of the Linux philosophy is to provide means and not policy. So you provide ways to do things, and then you combine different commands to achieve the end result. And with Emacs, you can implement any functionality as an extension by just scripting it and calling external functions or external programs to implement it. Which is how, for example, the completion is implemented, the irony mode completion for the C code. So it's very powerful in that sense that it's very easy to do stuff like this. For the Duke Nuke, I might like. It was a fun thing to do. I have a number of like MP3 files, which I can call using this MPEG-123 program, and I just bind them to keys. So I can press 0, and it's gonna talk like I got balls of steel, or like now I'm really pissed off.
Now I'm really pissed off.
And it's just you just define a number of functions like this. Obviously, they all have to be interactive, so that they can be used as commands. And then you just bind them to global keys. So when I use global keys, it's gonna work in every mode, in every window, in every buffer. Let's see if it actually works here. Let's see, talk, speak line, English.
GTTSL.
Yeah. So this is the Neotree buffer, and it's like everything is a buffer of this. So like you can retrieve lines and you can pass them to external commands and process them like this. So it's nice. I think This was a fun learning experience for me. One of the things that I did here also that that I had to do a little bit of research on is how to have, for example, a list of different commands and then call them in a sequence, so that, for example, if I have different variations and I want the same key to kind of cycle through the variations, then I can do it like this. I can use the function call, and then I can call the nth function, the built-in, and then I can supply the index of the item that I want to retrieve, and then I define a list which contains the items from which I'm going to be indexing, and then I have this global variable which I increment, and I then do modulo operator to kind of keep it in the range between 0 and 1. So it's gonna cycle like 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, and modulo operator will keep it below. So this limits it to 0 and 1. So before 2, like if you specify 10, it's going to limit it to 0 to 9. So that's how you do this kind of thing. I hope you learned something.